Well, this is Youth Sunday Takeover, so I thought I'd start by just telling you something funny that happened at my house with my youth just literally this week. My son Gavin has started to go through adolescence, and he started getting he has some, we all did it, some pimples, right? It's just how it works. And so he's in bed the other night, and or the other morning, and my 4-year-old. So my son Gavin's 13, my 4-year-old is 4. Gavin is 13, Trey is 4, and Trey runs down. He wants to wake up Gavin, and he calls him Guy, because for so much of Trey's life, he couldn't say Gavin. So he's like, Guy, wake up, Guy. And Gavin, leans over on the bed to face Trey. He's like, no, not right now, Trey. I'm still sleeping. And Trey goes, oh no, Guy, you have spider bites all over your face. Oh, man, that's so funny. I know a lot of you guys are like, dude, did you ask him if you could say that story? Yet Trey didn't care at all. Just kidding. I asked Gavin too. Kids are fun. It's fun raising kids. It's fun being a part of kids. It's youthful. It's wonderful. And we are on this Youth Takeover Sunday. We are going to be talking about youth. And before I do, I want to show you guys a book. This is the book. It's called The Joshua Principle. It is a book that is really just gives you an incredible God's insight into youth, the kingdom of God. And if you have not read this book, then you don't fully understand what the DNA inside of Foothills is. This message is really showing us some of the core values of Foothills. It's all principles that are found inside of this book. And if you have not read this book, we have it outside after church. There's 4 tables outside. It's 4 different youth ministries that we are really just promoting right now. The junior high ministry, the high school ministry, youth venture, and our higher ground clubs. Those are after school Bible clubs. And each one of them has a stack of these books on it. If you want to go and find out more information, or if you want to just say, you know what, it's time for me to start stepping in and volunteering with youth, and you want to volunteer, you can get one of these books for free. If you want to, I'll sign it. I didn't write it, but Mark Hoffman wrote it, our senior pastor. It's an absolutely incredible book. I definitely encourage you guys to pick one up and get signed up for one of the ministries going on. Can I pray for the word? Father, Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for the power that you have placed inside of this Bible, Lord, and how it changes us, how it sets us on the right direction, and how it causes us to look more like you, Father. We pray, Lord, that you would speak through your word right now, and that you would inhabit all of our hearts with it. Amen. So as I'm telling you right now, a lot of you guys that are here, you already know how much Foothills is focused in on youth. But if you haven't been here as long, there are things about Foothills that you may not know. I'm going to give you some right now, let you understand the DNA or the core values inside of Foothills. So let's start with asking this question. What does Jesus look for inside a church? What pleases him? Let's imagine that Jesus was going to walk through the typical American church. What would he do? What would he change? What would the church look like afterwards? Well, there's this famous story in the Bible that a lot of us know. We're going to read it right now. It's a story that we're finding in Matthew. My dad calls it the day Jesus went to church, and we get to see a glimpse of what he did, of how he changed things. So let's go ahead and look at Matthew 21, verses 12 through 13. It says this, and Jesus entered the temple and drove out all those who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he said to them, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a robber's den. When Jesus showed up to church that day, that Sabbath, he found that everything that was going on inside was the way that the insiders wanted it to be. It was all dialed out the way that they wanted it. It looked exactly the way that they had it. The money changers, they were exchanging money. And basically what that means is you needed to bring a temple tax, but the temple tax could only be paid with the Tyranian shekel. And so you would have to exchange your money so that you can use this Tyranian shekel that wasn't in circulation. And how many of you guys know it was a highly inflated exchange rate? They were making money. And the animal sellers were doing the same thing. You needed to bring a sacrifice to sacrifice at the temple, but it had to be an approved sacrifice. An approved animal. Without spot, without blemish. It had to be a nice and a good one. And so they had pre-approved animals that you could buy that were already checked by the priest. And those were at a what? Inflated price, an exorbitant price. And if you brought your own animal, for any reason, the priest could say, this is not a good animal. You'd be forced to go buy one. You'd leave your animal, which they would just take in and circulate back into the pre-approved ones. They were doing business. They were making money. Everything was dialed out. Everything was polished. The place looked incredible. The program director made sure that everyone was on cue, that every light turned on at the right time. The pastor or priest would come out and he'd be wearing his best robe or three-piece suit or woke cut-off jeans and designer shirts. Everything was dialed. And then Jesus came and he changed it. Before Jesus was there, the insiders were on the inside doing their thing. But when Jesus got there, the insiders and their agenda were now on the outside. Now, more important than who Jesus kicked out, more important to us is who did Jesus bring in? Let's look at that next verse right now. It's verse 14. So Jesus pushed out one group, but who did he bring in to his church that day? Verse 14, and the blind and the lame came to Jesus in the temple, and he healed them. That's great. Praise God. Praise Jesus for what he does inside of his church. Jesus is a church where the hurting, where the lost, where the broken find healing. Amen? It's a place where the lost are welcomed in and the hurting find ministry. It's a place where God restores and redeems. And when the church, when we as a church, or America as a church, when we stop looking to the hurting, the broken, and the lost, when we start looking for people who are just like us, put together like us, look like us, and we start preaching affirming messages and feel-good messages, and we braze over the truth of the Bible, and we stop preaching the redemptive value that Jesus has come to set people free, then what do we need to do? We need to hope there are no whips inside of our churches, because that's what Jesus did that day. He whipped them, didn't he? We didn't read that in the scripture. I didn't put that in there, but he did. Jesus' church, everyone should feel welcomed. Jesus, he's about restoring the lost and the broken to God's perfect plan. It's what he does. And we need to see that and be a church that brings people in so that God can redeem them. How many of you guys are excited that sometime you went to a church that believed this? And at that church, they showed you your sin, and then they led you down the road to redemption and healing. Are you guys excited about that? Jesus says this, he says in Mark 2:12, he says, on hearing this, Jesus said to them, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. And I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. That's what Jesus' church is. It's to help the hurting and the broken and the lost. But we're going to follow this story more, because that is, Jesus kicked one group out. He brought the hurting in, but who else did he bring in? And we're going to stay here on most of the rest of the service. Who else did Jesus bring into the temple that day? Let's go to the very next two verses 15 and 16 of that same chapter that we're in. Matthew 21, it says this, but when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he had done, and the who? Children. Oh, you Sunday. And the children who were shouting in the temple, Hosanna to the Son of David, they became indignant and said to him, do you hear what these children are saying? Who did Jesus bring in? He brought in the children. He brought in the youth. He brought in the young. And they came in shouting with joy and excitement and energy. And they surrounded Jesus. And this is what bothered the priests. This is what their complaint was, wasn't it? What was their complaint? Their complaint was, look at all these kids inside this place. They overlooked the kids. And what were the kids singing? Hosanna to the Son of David. This is important. Son of David is a messianic title. Right here, the kids come in and they get it the quickest. Don't they? They come in and they see Jesus for who he is, the fastest. The Pharisees, they didn't get it. They became indignant. They complained to Jesus, didn't they? It's interesting that the kids saw it first. How did Jesus reply to the Pharisees? Let's read it to the priests. Matthew 21, verse 16. And the Pharisees said to Jesus, do you hear what these children are saying? They didn't get it. They didn't understand it. And Jesus said to them, yes, have you never read? Out of the mouth of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared praise for yourself. Jesus is saying, I like their energy. I like their joy. I like their praise. God made them this way. He prepared it beforehand. Listen, this is how Jesus wants his church, full of excited kids worshiping and excited about Jesus. That's what he wants inside of his church. The day Jesus went to church, he filled it with kids and youth and those in needs and those who cared. That is why Jesus' church exists, isn't it? I'm reminded of a story because that's not always why the Church of America exists. I'm reminded of this story. It was about this little boy, about 9 years old, and he came from a really hard family. The dad was a drunk, and the mom was distant, and they all were always poor, and the kid was basically left to fend for himself. And one day he finds a church in the neighborhood, and he just goes, and he just loved it. He loved being there. He loved to hear about Jesus, and so he would go every Sunday, and he couldn't wait to get to Sunday. But the problem was this kid, he was poor. His clothes were dirty and stained, and his jeans were ripped, and his shoes had holes in it, and he smelled bad. He wasn't taught about cleaning and showering, and so he always smelled bad, and he was kind of an unruly kid because he had no rules at home. So one day, about 6 months after coming to church, he shows up, and the pastor stands out at the stairs and says, I'm sorry, son, I need to talk to you real quick. He says, listen, until you can start dressing nicer, and until you start smelling better, and until you can sit still, you really cannot come anymore. The little boy left, just broken, crying, walking down the street, and Jesus shows up to the little boy and says, my son, why are you crying? And the boy looks up at the church, and he says, they won't let me in there. And Jesus says, that's okay, I'll hang out with you. They won't let me in either. Jesus' church is a church where the youth and the kids are brought in. This is the DNA of what we believe. So on this youth takeover Sunday, I want to look at 3 lessons that Jesus wants to teach the church and us adults. Does that sound good? First one is this. It's that it's easy for adults to devalue and ignore children and youth. It's easy for us. It's natural for us. They can be bothersome, can't they? They can be disrespectful. It feels like they don't have a lot that they add into society. It's easy for us to devalue and ignore the children. Now, I want to look at a passage. I mean, we could take this from the passage we just read, but I want to take it from a different passage in Matthew 18. It's the story where the parents, the mothers are bringing their children to Jesus so that Jesus can bless them. Let's look at Matthew. Not Matthew 19. We're going to look at Matthew 19, verse 13 and 14. It says this, then some children were brought to Jesus so that he might lay his hands on them and pray. And the disciples what? Rebuked them. But Jesus said, let the children alone and do not hinder them from coming to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Listen, in the first story that we read, it was the Pharisees that devalued the children and ignored them, wasn't it? They wouldn't bring him into the temple. But yet, even in this one, it's Jesus' own disciples. It is a natural tendency inside of adults to devalue children. They wanted to protect Jesus from the kids. They wanted to protect him so that he could meet with the more important people. The wealthy businessman, the politician, the synagogue official, the whoever. And so they were trying to keep the kids away. But Jesus says, hey, you let those kids come, because to them is the kingdom of heaven. As adults, we need to realize our tendency to devalue youth. It's a part of it. We stop prioritizing them, and we can even start ignoring them. And even most churches in America undervalue children. And you can see it in the pay scales to their children's pastors. You know, most churches, the youth pastor does not get paid on the same scale or level as all the other pastors. It's kind of seen more as a stepping stone to something different. It seemed like it's, you know, and that's why we have such great turnover inside of youth pastorships. You know, think about this. Some of us have been inside of churches and where the pastor has left for one reason or another, retired, it doesn't matter. But it hurts a little bit. The guy that we have let be the pastor of our life for so long is no longer there. And the guy that has spoken to us and has counseled us and all of these things is no longer there. And it's hard, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be easy for all of you guys, but for other people, it's hard, right? It's hard. Think about youth, though. Youth can go from children's ministry all the way up and go through 4 or 5 youth pastors. It's hard. Not here, though. Tell you this. I'm going to give you a DNA of Foothills. We pay our youth pastors on the same level and same scale as everyone else, because what they do is incredible for the kingdom of God. In fact, they have the biggest budget inside of this church. And I will tell you, they spend that money full tilt boogie, and I don't even know what that means. We build beautiful facilities. The church across America builds these incredible facilities. And then what do? We try to protect our buildings from the kids. Is that true? Don't go there. Don't touch that. Get off of that. Don't pee there. We're always stopping them and trying to protect. Tell you this, not at Foothills. We don't build beautiful. We build bulletproof. There's the Golden Gate Bridge. It's got a crew that starts on one end and it moves all the way through the bridge, fixing things, painting things, doing all the maintenance. And when it gets to the other end, because of the wear and tear of the salt water and the cars going across, they have to pick up and go back to the front, because by the time they got to the end, everything is already deteriorating. That is our maintenance crew here at Foothills. They start at one end of the building. Yeah. And they fix, thank you, maintenance crew. They fix skateboard marks inside of walls, scooters that have went through drywall, chipped tile, all rips and everything. They fix it all the way through. And when they get to the end, they start all over again, happily and joyfully, because we choose at Foothills the youth. Yeah, to God, children are more important than buildings, aren't they? Let's look at the second one. The second point is that Jesus greatly values children and identifies with them. This is one of the things that we need to know as adults and as a church in America, is that not only do we have the tendency to devalue them and ignore them, Jesus values them greatly and he identifies with them. We're going to look at a passage in Matthew 18. We're going to read 6 verses. We're going to find both of our next points inside of this next passage. It says this: at the time, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "Who then is greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And you know they're looking for an answer. You, Neil, you are the greatest, right? But they get an answer that they were not expecting. And he called a child to himself and set him before the disciples and said, truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like what? Children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever then humbles himself as this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever receives one child in my name receives me. Oh, but now it gets heavy. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a heavy millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. Have you guys want to lean over to your spouse and say, hey, we need to take better care of our kids. We need to treat them better. Because a millstone's a 2-ton round rock. You can't tread that. Listen, God values children very much. He says, if you cause one of these kids who believe in me to stumble, then you will invoke my wrath. And he also says on the other side, if you welcome and receive one of these kids in my name, you welcome and receive me. He loves kids. He values them. Jesus doesn't walk around with us anymore like he did back then. You can't just go out and wash his car or bake him a cake. But he said, if you receive one of these children, you do it to me. If you want to show your love for Jesus, if you want to earn his blessing, reach out to a child. That's what he says. Children and youth are our way to love and serve Jesus. That's what he says. You know, we've got, I'm going to say this a couple times, but we have so many youth ministries here at the church. If you found in your life that you haven't been reaching a child and you're being stirred that it's time to start valuing kids the way that Jesus valued kids, this church has a lot of ministries to the youth. 4 that are going to be out on those tables. 4 that after service you can come out and connect with. 4 that you can get information on. 4 that you could volunteer. It's easy. It's not even hard. Children and youth give us the opportunity to serve the one we love. Let's look at the third one. It's this. That both entering and becoming great in the kingdom are dependent upon becoming like a child. Let's go ahead and read that same passage we read, but we're just going to isolate verses 3 and 4. Matthew 18, verses 3 and 4. Say this, and Jesus said, truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever then humbles himself as this child, he is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Can I tell you this, that nowhere in this Bible does it tell children that they need to be like adults to be good Christians. It doesn't say that. But the Church of America acts like that, doesn't it? We create all of our church services to appeal to adults, but not necessarily to youth. Our youth programs are just to babysit them while the grown-ups come up here and talk. Think about your own experience in church. Your own time when you were growing up, when you were a little kid. My dad says it was the longest 90 minutes of his life, of his week. Maybe you felt the same way. Most people did, because what was your job at church? What is a youth's job so many times at church? To dress up, to sit up, and to shut up. Is that true? The 3 favorite things that kids do, right? And when we do that, we give them a message, and the message that we give is that Christianity is for adults. Jesus gives us a totally different message. He says adults need to become like kids. Now, what he's not saying is adults need to become immature like kids and become childish. God loves it when children grow up to get jobs and get married and have families of their own. He's not saying adults need to be more immature. He's saying they need to have childlike faith. Isn't it true that children have an easy time believing? It's adults who have been hardened by this world, who are skeptical and question everything and keep things at arm. A child is ready to learn. He's teachable. He's questioning things in life. Jesus says that is what we need to be like. We need to bring the gospel of the kingdom to young people in the way that they respond to him. Jesus said the kingdom of God belongs to children because they gain the kingdom more easy. They gain it easier. God has made them in these age group of we're going to look at it in a second, this age group of 8 to 14 to enter into the kingdom of God easier. George Barna, leading pollster of the church, did a study. And in the study, he showed that 10 to 12-year-olds make up 4% of the population. That's it. Yet, they make up of over 25% of those that give their life to Christ. It's interesting, isn't it? And when you lengthen it between 8 and 13, the age of 8 and 13, they make up 50% of all people that give their life to Christ. And if someone graduates high school without giving their life to Christ, there is a small chance that they will all the way until death. 10%. God has made inside of these youth this critical social developed time where they can relate to God more easily. By any sane measurement of ministry, every church's top priority should be ministering to the youth, shouldn't it? If we say we care about the Great Commission, then how can we not make that a high priority? Jesus said, don't hinder them from coming to me. It's the person's best chance to enter into God's kingdom. God has created inside of people social development periods where things are supposed to happen. Let's get that slide up. When between a baby, the social development period of a baby 0 to 15 months, they learn they learn trust and they learn bonding. And if you take a child 0 to 15 months and you don't love them and you don't bond with them and you leave them there inside of a bassinet all day, they struggle for the rest of their life to be able to bond to people because there's this natural window that humans are supposed to learn this skill. And if they don't, then it's really hard for them to learn the skill later on. Let's look at toddlers. Toddlers are years 1 through 3. They learn sense of identity, independence, inquisitiveness, initiative. That's why we give them the busy boards, right? That we have is they're figuring things out and how things move. They're inquisitive. They're starting to learn. And let's do kindergartners, preschool 4 to 5. They learn social boundaries and social skills. And we all wish they learned them a little quicker, right? At the same rate, God has set a time as early adolescence for spiritual searching. This this youth period, God has made a developmental process that they start searching for spiritual things. Lisa Miller, researcher at Columbia University, says this. She says, a spiritual search to find a creator is an inherent development process in adolescence. At 10 to 12 years old, all of the conditions that are necessary for a young person to come to God are there. Their brains go through these organic processes that change and they start being able to think subjectively. They start looking at the world and what they believe instead of objectively where they just listen to what their parents have told them. A lot of times kids, they make this move and they start seeing things differently. Before, they believed everything their parents told them. I remember, and I've shared this before, my dad, he's a liar to me. He told me when I was a little boy, I've shared this, that Christmas Eve is my birthday, that people put up Christmas lights all over the world for my birthday. And I didn't question it. Because I wasn't thinking subjectively at that time. I was only whatever was brought in. I didn't realize it. I didn't focus it inside of myself. He could have told me that the moon was made of cheese. I would have believed it. But when you get to this other time inside of your life, you start looking outside and questioning, and they start searching. They want to know, who are they? Where do they belong? What do they believe? They start their process of emancipating from the family to become their own person. About a week ago, my wife took the kids to SeaWorld. And my 13-year-old Gavin, he's at SeaWorld with my wife. They're standing in this line, and there's this other 13-year-old little girl. She was an aggressive little girl. She's just staring at Gavin, like beady-eyed. And Heather's like, oh my goodness, this is awkward. And at one point, this little girl could take it no more. She walks up to Gavin and she says, what's your name? She stands really close and Gavin's like, Gavin? She's like, you're cute. What's your phone number? He is cute. My wife's like, no. Or she doesn't say no. She's like, oh, we got to go, guys. Let's go this way. And so Gavin follows her. But Gavin says something to her afterwards. He says, hey, Mom, next time something like that happens, can I handle it? And Heather says, oh, right. He's our oldest. We're going through this now. He's, oh, right. Yeah, you're becoming a man. That's right. You don't need me to do this stuff. You're trying to be your own person. In this time in their life, they're trying to figure out and take care of themselves. It's this time that is right for them to come to the saving grace of God. But the great tragedy is that all across America, there are 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds that have never been taught the gospel. They're making this process of figuring out who they are. They're making decisions that are going to be the foundation of their life, and no one has told them the truth yet. Jesus loves young people, and he wants to reach them during this strategic time inside their life. Listen to me right now. It's our job to reach them. Jesus honors people and churches that choose the youth. Do you know that? Jesus honors people and churches that minister to the youth, that go and get them. As a church, Foothills has chosen the youth. We have. But my question to you as an individual, have you made that choice yet? A lot of us have time. And a lot of us maybe right now are feeling the desire that it's time to get into youth ministry. It's time to connect. I don't want any 13 or 14-year-olds in my territory of influence to go through their adolescence and miss this perfectly timed developmental stage and miss Jesus in it. We've got those booths out back. Today, children come out of the womb and they are faced with predatory, toxic culture, aren't they? And it wants to destroy them. You know, there's pornographers out there, and there's drug dealers, and there's politicians. and these drug dealers, these pornographers, and these gangs, and these whatever, they've learned to exploit and profit from this confused and vulnerable time inside of these kids. And at school, these kids are taught that they came from apes and that there's no real truth, there's no real hope for their life. And they're taught that they can decide their own gender and they can decide their own sexual preference. And they can decide their own pronouns, and there's nothing in life that's going to be meaningful. And as a result, we have this entire youth culture that have become angry. And they've become confused, and they've become hurt, and they've become hard. San Diego Unified School District did a study, and they studied that 28% of San Diego Unified School District, 28% have thought about suicide at least once in the last year. 3 in 10. And you know what? The truth is since COVID, since the rise of even more social media, it's grown even bigger. This is the world our kids grow up in. My dad says something all the time. He says when he looks out and he sees a troubled youth, an unruly kid, someone doing something wrong or harmful, when he's driving down the street and he sees a gang of kids, he thinks, I wonder if I would be any different if I saw what they saw, been taught what they taught, and experienced what they experienced. gives you a lot of grace when you see those kids. The question is, how do we see those kids? How do we see kids in general? Do we devalue them, or do we see the great value, the great treasure that is hidden in the field? James 1:27, this is the last scripture. It says, pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this, colon. He's about to give us what pure religion is. To visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself abstained by the world. Listen, we hear all types of messages about being abstaining from the world. But what about the messages that say, go and visit the fatherless? Who are the fatherless? Anyone without a Christian, a godly father. And they could be fatherless from a bunch of different reasons. Divorce, fornication, prison, alcohol, it doesn't matter. All of these things, we've got this whole fatherless generation of youth out there. And Jesus says, go visit them. It's not enough if we just open up our doors and allow them to come in. They're not gonna come in. This is alien to them. It's up to us to go and get them. Is that the truth? To go visit them in their distress, in their hurt and in their pain and in their hardship and in their sorrow and in whatever's going on. That's why this church has 4 youth centers all over the city. We have 4 centers in all of these inner city areas. And I'll tell you, inside of this church, we've had them for a long time. Inside of this church, you can't throw a rock without hitting 3 or 4 of the adults in here that have given their life to God because they went through our youth venture system. In fact, let's get the band up here. In fact, the guy, Shane Blayfield, one of our worship directors, is going to stand somewhere in this area. Oh, there he is. Shane is a product of Youth Venture, of people inside of this church saying, I will volunteer, send me, I will go, that went out into their community and found him, searching, wanting, teachable, at that prime time inside of his life. We have, before COVID, we had 35 Bible clubs. Those are after-school Bible clubs on public school campuses because it's up to us to go out and visit, isn't it? For us to go out and get them. Our bus ministry currently has 5 different bus routes. They drive all around the city, picking up kids from apartment buildings and bringing them to church to hear Jesus. It's the DNA of what we have. My question to you is, have you got involved in what we have? They go out, the bus ministry goes out on Saturdays and visits the kids inside their homes, connects with the parents. Pure religion is this, to visit orphans and widows in their distress. You know, people, I want to read you something out of here. People come to church at Foothills all the time, and they ask the question, why does it seem like Jesus is so prevalent here? How come when I walk into this building, it's like, poof, I feel the presence of God? Jesus lives here. What's the secret? This is my dad. My dad wrote this. My dad's been in ministry for 130 years. And he wrote this. All of those years in ministry, all of those years of hearing people say that very same thing, I guarantee you most of you feel it when you walk in. I want to read you his answer. He says, I do not pretend to know all the ways of God, nor do we want to take credit for God's blessing that he freely gives. But I do know this. Jesus said that when you receive a child for the sake of Jesus, you receive him. That's right in the Bible, Matthew 18:5. I tell people that Jesus is here because he rode over on bikes and he rode over on skateboards of our neighborhood kids. He rode over on Sunday school buses and he got off those buses and came in the front door. That is the best answer I have. Jesus loves the youth. And he loves the youth of this church. And a church and a people will be honored when they choose what God chooses. I want to ask to do something right now. If you are a youth worker in here, anywhere from high school all the way down to nursery, I want you guys to stand up right now. Please stand up. We want to recognize you. Okay, you guys clap for them a lot more than you clap for me when I came up. No, stay standing. Listen, stay standing. I want to say something to you, and then we're all going to pray over you. You've seen it. These people are the people that have seen the treasure hidden in the field. The treasure is the youth. They're out in the neighborhoods, and they've seen it. And like that story, they wanted to sell everything so they could go get the treasure. And that treasure cost them, that field. And it cost them time and energy, and they volunteer, probably a lot of them weekly. You've seen the treasure. We're going to pray for you, but before we do, I want to also ask if you're a parent of anybody high school and lower, I want you to stand up with these guys as well, because we want to pray the same thing over you. If you're a parent of anyone high school and lower, I want you to stand up, because we're going to pray the same thing. You are a youth worker as well in your own family. God has called you to all these same principles, to value your children, to see the developmental periods in their life, and to bring them to Jesus. Now, if you're sitting down, I'm going to ask you to do something. Stand up. I'm just kidding. Put your hand out to someone that's standing by you. Don't touch them, because now we don't touch people after COVID, right? We're going to pray over every youth worker and over every parent inside of this room. Father, Lord Jesus, we come together as a church to thank you for all of these youth workers and all of these parents that are standing up right now. We thank you that they have seen the treasure hidden in the field, that they have decided that they want to have kids, and they've decided that they want to influence other people's kids. Lord, that they have seen your heart in regards to youth. They've seen that the kingdom of heaven belongs to them, and they've seen it as their job to stand in place and be your conduit of your truth and your power to these kids. So we all pray right now that you would bless these people standing up. You would bless them to work in the gifts of the Spirit, that you would give them words of wisdom and knowledge for their kids and for the kids that they minister to. Lord, that you would open up, Lord, their heart in a greater measure than they had when they came in here, that you would re-stir them up, that you would blow the breath of life into their ministry to the kids that they are ministering to. We pray that you would bless them and that you would fill them right now with your Holy Spirit. Amen. Go ahead and sit down. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Now I'm going to do one other thing. This band has been standing up here a long time. I want to ask for the kids to stand up. If you're a kid in here, high school and lower, we want to pray over you. Would you stand up? This is the kid. Stand up. If you're a kid 18 or high school and less, kid, not emotionally. Some of you parents need to sit down. Just kidding. Listen, can I tell you guys something right now? I want you guys to hear me. This is important for you to hear. You are God's treasure. God loves you very much. He wants to be with you. Sometimes in your life, you're going to feel differently. You're going to feel invisible. But I promise you right now, remember this one thing. There's never a time in your life that God is not readily available. He cares about you. He chooses the kids. When the adults tried to protect the kids from Jesus, Jesus said, "Get the adults away from me." Remind your parents that. He says, "Bring the kids." Okay, if you're an adult, stretch your hand out to one of these kids. Father, thank you for the treasure that you have hidden in this church. Thank you for the treasures, Lord, that are here, that are in the preschool classrooms, the nursery, the kids' church, and all of those that are in this room right now. Thank you that you have brought them here, that you've entrusted us to reach these ones. Thank you that when you look down, Lord, you see them as treasures. Lord, as parents and as members of this church, we want to speak right now and ask that your presence would fall on these kids. Just here on a Sunday morning, that your presence would come over these kids, that you would fill them with a measure of your spirit and a measure of your presence, that never in their life will they ever be able to second guess if you're real, because this Sunday they felt the power of the King. Father, we pray, Lord, you said that if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of you, gives to all men generously, and we will be given. We pray your wisdom would fall in these kids. They live in a culture that wants to destroy them, Jesus, but we pray your wisdom reign on them. Let them see truth when they're being taught lies. Let them see your goodness, Lord, when the enemy is attacking them. We pray a blessing of your protection on them. Do not let the enemy have influence with our young people. Do not let him thwart his plans, Jesus. Thwart his influences. And give them boldness and courage to stand for you. Amen.